This question asked me to give two numbers that multiply to 40 and add to 13. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply. Look, I'm going to draw the multiplication dot above this just so I can think about that a little bit more easily, and add to 13. So if I'm thinking about two numbers that multiply to 40, add to 13, first of all, I observe they're both positive, so that means my two numbers are going to be positive, right? Positive times positive is positive, positive plus positive is positive, so I'm looking at two positive numbers. Now, when I'm thinking about pairs of numbers that multiply to 40, this can be, look, I can start with 1. It could be 1 times 40. It could be 2 times 20. Now, let's say you're like, wait, 2 times what is 40? And you're like, not sure. You can't figure it out in your head. Okay, you can use your tools, right? Like you could do 40. You could say, could just 2 multiply to 40? 40 divided by 2? Oh, is 20. Can I do 3 times something to get 40? 40 divided by 3? No, that's a decimal. 4 times what is 40? Oh, 4 times 10 is 40. What about 5? Does 5 multiply to 40? Yeah, 5 times 8 is 40. Does 6 multiply to 40? No, neither does 7, right? And again, if you're like not sure, you could do 40 divided by 6. Oh, that's a decimal. Okay, so these are the pairs of numbers that multiply to 40, and what I'm looking for is the pair that adds to 13. So this doesn't, this doesn't, this doesn't, this does. So I would write 5 and 8. Now, for some of you, you might feel comfortable just looking at this and thinking in your head, and you're able to come up with 5 and 8, just like that. Awesome. If not, though, feel free to use this strategy and use your calculator and use all your resources to be able to come up with the correct answer. In the next one, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 24. They multiply to negative 24 and add to negative 5. So the first thing I think to myself is, oh, if I have two numbers that multiply to a negative, the only way that's possible is to multiply a positive times a negative. So I'm going to need one positive number and one negative number in order to multiply to negative 24. And here's the thing about adding. When I go to add, so let's think, for example, let's think of two numbers that multiply to 24. Let's use 12 and 2 for a moment. So 12 times 2 is 24. Now, because it has to multiply to negative 24, one of them has to be negative. So here's the thing. Let's say I make the 2 negative. That would be 12 plus negative 2. That's the same as 12 minus 2. That would add up to positive 10. Now, if I did negative 12 times positive 2, that would add up to negative 10, because notice this time I have more negatives than positives, right? And again, if you're struggling on this, you can use your calculator, right? I can get the same answer in my calculator. I can say, oh, this is 12 plus negative 2. I could do it like that, okay? So what I notice is that if I want these two numbers to add to negative 5, I'm going to need my larger number to be negative. And I also need, notice, 12 plus 2 is not 10, 12 minus 2 is 10. Because these numbers are different signs, we actually end up subtracting them. So what I'm looking for is two numbers that multiply to 24, and when I subtract them, I get 5. So here again, I could start and I could say, okay, well, 1 times 24, 2 times 12. What I'm looking for is a pair of numbers that subtracts to get 5. Okay, 3 times 8 is 24, 4 times 6 is 24. Look, this is the one that if I subtract these two numbers, I get 5. Now, because I want these to add to negative 5, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my larger number my negative number. So I'm going to make this negative 8 and this positive 3. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. And once again, feel free to use your tools in order to check your answers. Okay, what we're looking for here is, can you use all your resources and get a correct answer, even if you're struggling with it? Last one, give two numbers that multiply to 54 and add to negative 15. Notice here, they're multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative. There's only one way to accomplish that. That's a negative times a negative is a positive. A negative plus a negative is a negative. So now this actually ends up being more like my first one, where I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 54 and add to 15. Again, if you need to, you can just start at 1 times 54. You can ask yourself, oh, does 2 multiply to 54? You could do it like this, 54 divided by 2, and say, oh yeah, 2 times 27 is 54. Does 3 multiply to 54? You could do it like this. Now, it might just pop into your head and you might realize, oh, I know what multiplies to 64 and adds to 15, 6 and 9, right? And that might just pop into your head, and that's lucky for you, and that's totally fine. And that ends up being the answer, right? Negative 6 times negative 9 is positive 54, and negative 6 plus 9 more negatives is negative 15, okay? And again, you can kind of use this process if you need to, but if you're able to just look at it and think of it in your head, that's great too.